2020 has been full of surprises for the WWE. Even though they didn't have a crowd, we still have acknowledged that they had a lot of good pay-per-views this year. So shout out to the WWE for having a bunch of good pay-per-views, cutting them short and making them unique as a way that with no fans they took the opportunity to make some matches like cinematic matches or matches we never seen or thought of before. So it was still a success in many ways with the pay-per-views the WWE produced this year. So with all that aside, let's get all the talking in the side and let's get to the best pay-per-views of 2020 from best to worst. You could drop it down in the comment section below, and also drop down in the comment section below what was your favorite pay-per-view of the year. I really want to know. I want to see you guys' responses. Can we get this video to 10 likes? I will do an AEW one. We get to this video with 10 likes. But yeah, let's get straight into it. Best pay-per-views of 2020. Okay, the best pay-per-view of the year, in my opinion, had to be the Royal Rumble of 2020, man. Crazy to think all this happened in this year, man. Yeah, I know, it sounds kind of weird. And this pay-per-view, it was just amazing. I'm not talking about just the men's Royal Rumble, because you guys like how much I love that match. I'm just saying the rest of the card was fantastic. I mean, the only match that really didn't stand out that much was Bayley and Lacey Evans, which wasn't that bad. Just the finish was terrible, but we could deal with that match. But I'm saying King Corbin versus Roman Reigns. Now, the storyline wasn't good, but the match itself they had at the Rumble was phenomenal. I enjoyed it. I loved it. The women's Royal Rumble was also pretty cool. You had Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler, new NXT top tier talents at the time, coming in and shining. You had Charlotte Flair winning it, which was pretty cool. The men's Royal Rumble, man, that was amazing. You had Brock Lesnar throwing out most of the roster, but it was still fun. It all led to Drew McIntyre taking him out, so that was a big ovation he got. What else did you get? You got MVP making his return. That was a surprise. And you got Edge making his return at number 21. I mean, what else can you ask for? This was all in one match, and the rest of the card was also good. So I had to put the Royal Rumble as the best pay-per-view of 2020. It's pretty funny how I put the first pay-per-view and the last pay-per-view of the year as my top two. But up next is TLC, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. Now, I know this might be a surprise for many because TLC is not usually a top-tier pay-per-view. I mean, it's not supposed to. It's just a pay-per-view to have fun, but never be a top-tier pay-per-view. But this year, man, they went all out for TLC. Like, they had Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens had the best match of the night. That was fantastic. AJ and Drew kicked off the show for the WWE title. You had the Hurt Business versus the New Day. You had the Hurt Business finally win the tag team championships. You had Charlotte make her return. Then Charlotte and Asuka win the tag team titles. You had Carmella and Sasha Banks going at it. First time ever. They put on a good match. The kickoff show was actually pretty cool. And the whole pay-per-view quality with only 7 matches turned out to be a fantastic pay-per-view. And then you had the main event, Randy Orton and The Fiend. You guys know I like that match. It was phenomenal. I enjoyed every single second of it. And it's going to lead to a big storyline coming in the future with The Fiend. So, overall, I like this pay-per-view. I thought it was pretty cool. You guys didn't watch it, I recommend you go check it out. At least go check out Roman versus KO. Check out The Fiend versus Randy. But I just guarantee you, just go check out the whole card, man. It was actually very watchable. So, that's why I had to put it at number 2. At number 3, this might be another surprise for many because Payback is like TLC. Just a fun pay-per-view, a bunch of good matches, but never a top-tier pay-per-view. But this year, man, Payback went all out, man. They had Nia and Shayna versus Bayley and Sasha. That was the best. That was a good match. That was a very good match. Sheamus and Big E had a good physical match. You had Bobby Lashley finally winning the U.S. title again. You had Roman Reigns coming in, and he won the title. He signed the contract last minute, and that got him the Universal title. You had Roman and Paul Heyman pairing. And the rest of the card was pretty cool. You had Keith Lee beating Randy Orton in 5 minutes. That was the shocker as well. So the card was pretty good. Everything basically stand out. You had the ring collapse. Almost anything you needed in a pay-per-view. And it was only cut short with only, like 7 matches. So it was definitely a good pay-per-view. And I recommend you guys go check it out. At least you go check out the Nia and Jax versus Shayna Baszler versus Bayley and Sasha. And you guys could go check out the main event with The Fiend versus Braun and Roman. And the rest of the card was still pretty cool. So you guys could definitely go check it out. But I had to put it at number 3. Up next, we got to put Hell in a Cell 2020, man. This was a fantastic pay-per-view. You already know, man. We had Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. Universal title to open up the show was a Hell in a Cell I Quit match. You had Sasha Banks versus Bailey, the role model versus the boss. They put on like a 5-star match. Then you had the best match of the night, Slapjack versus Bobby Lashley. Best match of the year. It has to. No, I'm kidding. But you still had that match. It wasn't that bad. And you had Drew and Randy close out the show, which led to Randy Orton winning the title. Eventually, Drew won it back, but a Hell in a Cell Randy won the title. So it was still a good pay-per-view. As a lot of people put on their top list, and I understand why, because it was just such a pay-per-view. For me, I loved every single second of it. So that's why I had to put it in my top 4. Next, I'm gonna go with Survivor Series 2020. The reason I put this pay-per-view, just because the whole pay-per-view was fun. I'm not gonna go straight to Roman versus Drew, because you guys know how good that was. Because the Street Profits versus the New Day was a fantastic match. The opening kicked off with the men's traditional 5-on-5 match, which usually always close up the show. It opened it, so it was still pretty fun. Sasha and Asuka had a good match. Then you had Bobby Lashley and Sami Zayn. They had a pretty technical match. It wasn't that bad. And the women's Survivor Series team match was actually not bad too. And you had Lana, so that created a moment, which didn't turn out for nothing, but at that time it was so shocking. And then you had The Undertaker's final farewell. So a bunch of stuff happened on this pay-per-view. That's why I had to put it at the top of the list. At the number 6 spot, I put WrestleMania. I had to put WrestleMania in this list, obviously in the top, because it's WrestleMania. No matter what, it will always be WrestleMania. And this card actually featured Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley in a good match. You had John Cena in the Firefly Funhouse match with The Fiend. That was pretty cool. You had the epic Boneyard match. You had Braun Strowman finally winning the title. You had Drew winning the title. And just a lot happened on this pay-per-view. It was too big for one night. No crowd. First crowd with no WrestleMania, man. Crazy, man. There was no crowd for WrestleMania, but it still went on. They put up a show, so I gotta appreciate that, and that's why I had to put him at number 6. Up next, we had to put the biggest party of the year, Summerslam. We had to put it in here, man. You never saw it coming. This pay-per-view just went on for Roman Reigns to return. Overall, I did like the pay-per-view. I enjoyed Seth Rollins versus Dominic Mysterio. I enjoyed Sasha versus Asuka. I enjoyed the main event, including obviously the very last parts of the main event with Roman Reigns' return as a heel. I did like that. I did like Bailey versus Asuka as well. And the rest of the card was pretty fine as well. So I had no problems with it. It just doesn't feel like a SummerSlam worthy pay-per-view. Randy Orton versus Drew, they had a good match as well. But I didn't really like the finish. I guess we never saw that coming. But I don't know, man. Just didn't feel like SummerSlam. I think SummerSlam last year was way better. But they still went out to have a good show. I'm just saying, SummerSlam's supposed to be like a WrestleMania in the summer. They just didn't feel that way for most of the stuff. But hey, it happened and it wasn't that bad. But compared to other pay-per-views, I wouldn't put it more top. Up next, I'm going to put Elimination Chamber because I did enjoy this pay-per-view. I was going to call this like one of the best pay-per-views, but considering the rest of the pay-per-views we got, I didn't. Because like mid-year, I thought this was going to be a top-tier pay-per-view to end off the year, but it wasn't because, we got amazing pay-per-views. But I enjoyed this one because I did like the Aleister Black versus AJ No DQ match. I like the Sami Zayn won the title. I like Humberto Carrillo versus Andrade. They had a pretty good match. The only thing that didn't really do good for this pay-per-view, because we did get The Undertaker. That was cool. But the last match, it had some good spots, but overall, it just didn't feel like a main event pay-per-view worthy, you know what I'm saying? If you put this maybe in the middle, we could have dealt with it, but it just didn't feel good. And that tag team Elimination Chamber match was phenomenal. Go watch it if you didn't. So this pay-per-view had a lot of good stuff, but it also had a lot of negative stuff. But it still has to be not too bad down in the list. Up next, we got to talk about the Clash of Champions pay-per-view. Overall, I enjoyed this pay-per-view just because of Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns, the storytelling they told in the match, and also the ladder match. One of the most unique ladder matches, because ladder matches nowadays like the same spot. Everybody gets a cool spot. You climb up slow, the other opponent wins. It's something like that, but this was unique. Yeah, Sami Zayn outsmart Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles. So that's huge, and he became a 2-time Intercontinental Champion. You also have some stuff here with Sasha and Bailey building up to their Hell in a Cell match. And you had, what other match? You had some other good matches. You had Drew and Randy Orton, the ambulance match. How could you ever forget? Probably the best match of the whole storyline. It was actually pretty fun. You had Legends come back. You had Shawn Michaels hit a super kick. You had Big Show chokeslam Randy through the table. Bunch of stuff. It was just cool around pay-per-view for Clash of Champions. Next, we gotta put Backlash, the greatest wrestling match ever, Edge versus Randy Orton. Call it the best or not, this match delivered, man. Once they stepped in the ring, they both delivered, they both put on a show. The opening of the show was pretty cool. You have Sasha and Bayley retain. Sheamus and Jeff Hardy had a pretty good match as well. And a bunch of other stuff was pretty cool. I like the Miz and Morrison versus Braun was a funny thing right there. It was not that bad. Morrison and Miz actually took a lot of advantage in that match. It was just a build up, the Fiend more, because at the end you saw they put a Fiend template when Braun retained. But overall, the pay-per-view was fun. You had the greatest wrestling match ever, so it was actually a good match. And yeah, just a fun little show by WWE. Next, we got the horror show Extreme Rules. This pay-per-view was actually a pretty bad pay-per-view. It did have some good stuff with Rollins and Mysterio up to the end, with the fake eye. But the match was pretty fun. Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro versus the New Day tables match was actually pretty cool. They even won the titles. Drew versus Dolph was actually a good match. But then the Swamp Fight at the end, I just really didn't like it. Just the whole pay-per-view around. The theme was, I guess, something new, something fresh. But it just didn't play out as expected. That's why I had to put it lower in the list. Okay, up next, we're going to put Super Showdown. You guys know how this pay-per-view went. Goldberg squashed the Fiend in under 5 minutes. Became new Universal Champion. That's all I got to say. One thing that was positive of this pay-per-view, I will say, is Miz and Morrison winning the tag team titles. Other than that, this pay-per-view was horrible. Okay, now this might be shocking for many, but I put Money in the Bank 2020 as one of the worst pay-per-views of the year. Actually, this is the final one right here. Reason being is, I was more hyped up for Super Showdown than this pay-per-view. The reason was because I thought Goldberg was going to put over the Fiend, and the card looked pretty fine, and I was expecting more. But when we got to Money in the Bank, you had R-Truth versus Bobby Lashley. That's the only thing really. You had Tamina versus Bayley. You had a tag team match that we already saw already. You had Braun versus Bray Wyatt, which was it was fine. It wasn't that bad. It was fine. Then you had the Money in the Bank, which was terrible because I like the concept, but they put the men's and women at the same time, so it was hard to concentrate. You barely got to see both of the matches. It was just some fun skits, and then the winners being I was fine with Asuka, but then Otis won. The way it just landed on him, I wasn't a fan of that. The only thing that saved this show, Seth Rollins and Drew, which I feel bad because I wish they put this up higher, because Seth and Drew I'm actually going to put in my top 10 favorite matches of 2020. But unfortunately it was given in such a bad pay-per-view. I like the theme, it just didn't play out. Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro was a banger, but that wasn't the kickoff show, so it doesn't really count for the main show. So other than that, it really wasn't that good for me. And that's going to be it for the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section below what was your favorite pay-per-view and what was your least favorite pay-per-view. And yeah, peace.